And during his remarks at the UN today, President Trump also made some claims about his immigration policies, including this one.
On our southern border, we have successfully repelled a colossal invasion. And for the last 4 months, and that's 4 months in a row, the number of illegal aliens admitted and entering our country has been zero. Hard to believe.
And CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez is here to fact check some of the president's claims. Is that comment accurate?
Well, it is true that there has been a dramatic and truly historic drop in illegal immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border since President Trump took office for a second time. Illegal crossings there, Nancy, are actually at the lowest level since the 1960s. But we have to make a distinction between border crossings and the number the president is talking about, that zero number. The president, Nancy, is likely referring to the number of migrants released by Border Patrol into the U.S. Customs and Border Protection has reported that over the past 4 months, that agency has not released a single migrant into the U.S. after they crossed into the country illegally. Still, there are still some people crossing into the country illegally, including along the U.S.-Mexico border. For example, in August, more than 6,000 people were arrested by Border Patrol after crossing into the U.S. illegally. The policy change now is that, for the most part, they are being held until they are deported, or they're being deported right away.
And Camilo, I also want to ask you about President Trump's deportation strategy, which he also talked about today. Let's take a listen to that first.
Well, if you come illegally into the United States, you're going to jail, or you're going back to where you came from, or perhaps even further than that. You know what that means?
So the president there seems to be alluding to agreements with more than a dozen countries to accept deportees from the United States. What countries is he talking about here, and what are they getting in return for this? I know that this is something you've been following very closely.
Yeah, critical questions, Nancy. To level set, the Trump administration has mounted this aggressive diplomatic effort to convince as many countries around the globe, including in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, to take in people who are not their citizens as deportees. For example, it has brokered agreements with countries like El Salvador in Latin America, Costa Rica, Panama, also Kosovo in Europe, and also African countries like South Sudan, Rwanda, and Uganda. So those countries can take citizens who are not their own. And in terms of what these countries are actually getting in return, it is unclear because these agreements have been secretive in nature. We do know that El Salvador, for example, did receive millions of dollars from the U.S. to house Venezuelan migrants deported from the U.S. and to house them at a notorious mega prison known as Secot. And South Sudan, when it accepted non-Sudanese immigrants, was facing visa sanctions from the U.S. So the U.S. has tremendous political and economic leverage over many of these countries.
All right, Camilo, we always appreciate your insight and your context, especially on these issues. Thank you very much.